The air in Coldwater Falls always felt heavier in autumn. It wasn't just the shifting weather or the smell of burning leaves, it was something quieter. Something most folks didn't talk about. People here smiled politely, waved from their porches, and kept their darkness tucked away beneath layers of routine. Evelyn Monroe was 36 when she moved back into her grandmother's old house near the edge of town. The house had sat vacant for nearly a decade, slowly becoming one with the creeping ivy and the quiet decay of time. She inherited it after her grandmother passed, and with nowhere else to go, Evelyn packed up her life in the city and returned to the only place that had ever felt like both home and purgatory. She didn't expect peace, she wasn't looking for redemption. All she wanted was space, to breathe, to think, to rebuild, maybe even to forget. But Coldwater Falls didn't forget. And the house remembered everything. It was the silence that got to her first. Not the kind that soothes you to sleep, but the kind that presses in on your chest like the memory of something terrible you're not quite ready to remember. The creaks in the hallway weren't just wood settling. The whispers at night weren't just wind. She tried to ignore them. She painted the walls. She replaced the rotted floorboards. She built a garden in the backyard with trembling hands. But the house had a way of pulling at her, through dreams, through noise, through the shadows that danced just a second too long at the edge of her vision. Then there was the basement. Her grandmother had always warned her never to go down there, not because it was dangerous, but because some doors are meant to stay shut. As a child, Evelyn had listened. As an adult, she felt the pull of curiosity gnaw at her spine. She told herself it was silly, that grief and loneliness were playing tricks on her. But the first night she opened that basement door, her life began to unravel in ways she never expected. The basement door had always been locked. Evelyn remembered the way her grandmother used to place an old iron key on the mantel above the fireplace, out of reach, out of sight. But after the funeral, when she returned to the house alone, she found the key inside a dusty envelope tucked between the pages of a cookbook in the kitchen. There was no note, no explanation. That should have been her first warning. Still, one rainy night, when the sky cracked open and the wind howled through the trees like wolves, she found herself standing at the door with the key in her hand. She didn't even remember getting it. One moment she was washing dishes. The next she was standing barefoot in the hallway, staring at the old wooden door with peeling white paint and a brass handle that had turned green with time. Her fingers trembled as she turned the key. The click echoed too loud in the silence. The door creaked open, revealing a staircase that spiraled downward, swallowed by darkness. The air that escaped smelled like rust, mildew, and something else, something deeper, like a graveyard after rain. She found a flashlight in the junk drawer and descended slowly. Each step groaned under her weight, as if the house resented her presence there. The further she went, the colder it became, like the warmth of the world was being left behind. The basement was larger than she remembered, wider than it should have been. Old furniture draped in yellowed sheets stood like ghosts in the corners. Cobwebs hung like curtains. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with dusty jars filled with things she couldn't identify. At the center of the room sat a large trunk, iron-bound, aged, and unmistakably out of place. Her breath fogged the air. Her flashlight flickered once, twice, then held steady. She approached the trunk. The air grew heavier, her ears ringing faintly. The lid was covered in strange carvings, symbols she didn't recognize. Worn by time but still pulsing with a strange energy. She knelt down, placed her hand on the cold metal latch, and froze. A voice, clear and quiet, whispered in her ear, "Not yet." She shot to her feet, flashlight whipping around the basement, heart hammering in her chest. But no one was there. She fled up the stairs, slammed the door shut behind her, and locked it. That night, she didn't sleep. That was the beginning of everything. Evelyn avoided the basement for days after that night. She covered the door with a heavy bookshelf, telling herself it was just to keep the draft out. But she knew better. And yet, the house had begun to change. It started with whispers. At first, she thought it was the wind in the chimney. But soon she realized it only happened at night, and only when she was alone in the kitchen. Faint murmurs, like voices too far away to understand. She would turn off the faucet, hold her breath, and listen. And every time, just as she convinced herself she imagined it, she'd hear it again, closer. Then came the scratching, soft at first, like a mouse in the walls. Then louder, long, deliberate drags along the wooden floorboards beneath her bed. One night, she awoke at 3:17 a.m. sharp, to the unmistakable sound of something crawling under her bed. She didn't move, couldn't breathe. She lay there for what felt like hours until the sound stopped. When morning came, she checked beneath the bed. Nothing, but the floor beneath her was covered in long, deep scratches, like claw marks. 3 parallel lines, uneven and erratic, burned into the wood like it had been scorched instead of carved. She told herself she needed rest. That grief was playing tricks on her. That she'd let herself get too caught up in the isolation of the house. Then the dreams began. They always started the same. She was standing at the top of the basement stairs. The door was open, light spilling up from below, warm and golden, and something, was down there, calling her name, not shouting, just speaking softly, like a parent to a child. Every dream ended the same. 2. She stepped down, one stair at a time, until her foot hit the dirt at the bottom, and then she woke up. Heart racing, always at exactly 3:17 a.m. She started keeping a notebook beside her bed. Every night, she'd write down what she remembered. She thought maybe she'd find a pattern. She didn't expect to find the notebook already filled one morning with writing she didn't remember. Page after page. Her own handwriting, dozens of entries she never wrote. Don't let it out. It wears faces. The door must stay closed. And one line, written in darker ink, scrawled over and over until the page tore beneath it. It's not your grandmother. Evelyn didn't remember writing any of it. But deep down, she knew it was true. Evelyn couldn't avoid it any longer. The whispers, the scratches, the dreams, everything had been leading her back to the basement. Her body told her to run, to leave the house and never look back. But her mind, driven by the need to understand, pushed her forward. The more she tried to ignore the pull, the stronger it became. That afternoon, she finally stood in front of the basement door once again. The bookshelf had been pushed aside, the key still resting cold and heavy in her palm. For a long moment, she stood there, staring at the door, the house holding its breath around her. A loud crack of thunder echoed in the distance. She turned the key. The door creaked open, as if welcoming her back. This time, the basement felt different. There was no coldness, no mildew or dust. The air was heavy but warm. The lights were on, bright, almost blinding. And there, standing in the middle of the room, was the mirror. It hadn't been there before. Evelyn would have remembered it. But now, it stood tall and polished, its frame gold and ornate, glowing as if from within. She took a cautious step toward it. Her heart pounded so loudly in her chest that she could barely hear the faint hum coming from the mirror itself. She reached out, her hand trembling as she touched the surface. Nothing. The mirror felt warm, almost alive, but as she gazed into it, she saw something else, a figure, standing just behind her, a face she knew all too well. Her grandmother's face, but with eyes that were wide and unblinking. The lips stretched into a silent scream. But the reflection didn't move. Evelyn spun around, but there was no one there. When she turned back to the mirror, her own reflection was gone, replaced by that same face, her grandmother. But older, decayed, its skin rotting away in real time. The thing in the mirror grinned at her. Evelyn stumbled backward, her chest tightening. The reflection remained, its mouth stretching unnaturally wide, and its eyes locked onto hers. The whisper came again, louder now, echoing from the mirror. You shouldn't have come. Her grandmother's voice, but wrong, distorted, like something trying to take control. Evelyn tried to back away, but her feet wouldn't move. The house seemed to close in around her, the air thick with the smell of decay. Then the mirror cracked. It wasn't a small crack, either. The glass splintered and shattered, the pieces falling like 1,000 broken memories. As the mirror shattered, a figure stepped out from the shards, a shadowy form, tall and distorted. Its eyes glowed a deep, unnatural red. Evelyn screamed, her body frozen in place. But before she could do anything, the figure reached out. And, epilogue, the end of the line. When Evelyn's family arrived to check on her days later, they found the house in utter silence. The basement door stood open, and the mirror, now reduced to a pile of glass, lay in the center of the room. But Evelyn was gone. There were no signs of struggle. No blood, just a single note on the table. It was written in a handwriting that wasn't hers. I freed her. Now it's your turn. The house was sold shortly after. No one wanting to live there after hearing the rumors of the strange things that happened in that basement. But some nights, when the wind howls and the air grows thick with whispers, people claim they can hear her voice. The voice of Evelyn, now trapped in the mirror, whispering to those who dare listen.